Good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you're watching this transmission. It is I, Mike Martins, bringing you some housing stories, some really disturbing stories. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Got a few of them here from Better Dwelling. Better Dwelling's really on Johnny on the spot when it comes to bringing you stories at the right time. They're really good at predicting downturns and predicting or debunking the dinosaur media. So let's see what's going on here. This week's top stories: credit cycles and Canadian real estate prices, and inventory is rising in Toronto and Vancouver. This is a perfect storm of a problem, guys. Understanding how the credit cycle impacts Canadian real estate prices, the credit cycle, and real estate. Here's the recovery. Okay. Interest rates get cut, lenders are cautious, and credit defaults start to decline. Expansion, interest rates at relatively low. Anyone with a pulse can borrow. That's very important right there. And credit defaults bottom. Downturn, interest rates rise, lending is tightened, and credit defaults rise. Repair, interest rates peak, lending is difficult, and credit defaults bottom. That's phenomenal. Right there. That's what you need to know right there. And that's how the cycles work. Let's read a bit here what they say here. There's a lot of factors impact real estate prices, but they're all ultimately depending on liquidity. Liquidity is just one way of saying that there needs to be people that want to buy your home and have enough to buy it. Remember when I had a guest on one of the guests I had on trends in the housing market on Wednesdays, guys. What he said was basically it boils down to borrowing power. That's it. If you can't borrow it, then it won't sell. The money used to come from income and savings, but in the late 80s, banks started extending more and more credits. To rip a page out of the Wu-Tang Financial Planning Guide, we replaced cash with credit, CREAM, cream. That's why you should get familiar with the credit cycle and how it impacts real estate markets. Credit Cycles 101. Today, we are going to break the credit cycle down in 4 categories: recover, expansion, downturn, and repair. The credit cycle doesn't give a SHI about how much density you've built. Oh, it means absolutely sweet F all. When people say, yeah, but I'm up 200K right now, Mike, so if it goes down 10%, that's okay, you know? Yeah, well, let's see what happens. Or whether or not you're on the south-facing lot. The cycle is based on availability and credit, and expansions and contractions it makes. It's actually such a force that post-Keynesian economist Minsky believed that it drives the business cycle. Since credit availability and income are major factors in home buying, it plays a pretty big role in housing cycle. So here it goes again: recovery, expansion, downturn, repair. Recovery phase. Let's start with the recovery phase. So it's basically back in 2008. When damage is in the previous cycle is being repaired, during this phase, credit and asset growth is reflectively flat. Defaults and unemployment peak, and that's a start to feel normal. Interest rates cut to stimulate the economy, and household debt starts growing. The impact is increased liquidity, which is bankster for people can start buying SHI. The increase in liquidity allows the asset price to grow, which makes it easier for banks to lend. And then the expansion phase. The credit expansion phase is exactly what it sounds like. When credit expands very quickly, you have heard of a loan is easiest to get when you don't need one. Yeah, you walk into the bank. Hi, I'm here to pay my electricity bill. Oh, sir, we have you approved here for a mortgage. Why don't you go have a seat? I don't want a mortgage. Yeah, well, you're approved. Go have a seat. I just want to pay my electricity bill and get them. No. You're going to buy a house right now. It's like, that's what's happening here. But with whole economies, wages grow, unemployment falls, and credit defaults print new loans. The increased wealth from the employment boom meets low rates to create a lot of leverage and fast. During this phase, debt rapidly expands, but it's fine. The job market is booming. Insert eye roll. Asset prices like stocks and real estate make very sharp climbs. I've been writing that too, on and off. And that's why you follow the trends in the market, right? You follow the housing, you follow spot gold, you follow oil, you follow crude, you follow the futures markets, you follow. I'm not even gonna get in there. Sadly, so let's look at a downturn. Sadly, all the good times have come to an end. Phase known as downturn. We should call it party is over, lights out. Who's gonna clean the mess? That's the key here. This phase is transitional phase, so it starts very differently from how it ends. In the beginning, credit growth trends lower and stabilize at lower rate. Debt is still growing, but much less than it was just a year before. Defaults start to gently climb, and assets start to lose luster. The slowing credit growth adds up towards the end of this phase. The economy grew so quickly during the expansion, everyone forecasts huge growth. That growth can't be met, which leads to a sudden halt in spending. So consumer spending goes down and a rise in unemployment. Credit starts to tighten and lenders carefully choose new borrowers. Yeah, so when you walk into the bank and say, hi, I came to pay my electricity bill, but you guys gave me a mortgage instead. Well, I need to refinance because I'm in trouble. Nope, we don't want you here. You don't qualify, but why did you give me a mortgage in the first place? And that's the problem right now. The end of the phase is usually marked as a recession. Fast falling asset prices and soaring defaults, usually about the 10th of the population, is severely impacted. Fun fact, the Bank of Canada just warned about 8% of the population will be impacted by raising interest rates. Wow, that's a fun fact. Making it better, the repair. No, the doom doesn't last forever. The economy just needs to fix its efficiencies caused during the expansion and recession in necessary correction of human financial capital. During the repair phase, the reallocation begins. Households deleverage, meaning that the household's debt decreases, unemployment begins to drop, and credit defaults start to bottom. Interest rates are about as high as they can get and may start getting cut. Asset prices start making a gentle climb back higher. Canadian real estate mortgage growth, the annual percentage change in mortgage credit growth adjusted for inflation, real Canadian home prices are plot as annual change, quarter reference. So here it is. There's change in price, recession, all right here. Wow, it goes back to the 80s, which is really good. And that's where we are right now. Could it go back to 82? Yes. It's not only is it going to go back to 82 prices, but it's going to get a lot worse than 82 prices because in this time here, Canada wasn't bringing in wealthy investors to fill the void for our GDP. So back here, you're going to see it's going to get worse than 82. We'll call it the winter of 82. Rinse and repeat for as long as people will over and underestimate expectation. I'll let you decide where the credit cycle are, but properly assessing risk is how to make and keep wealth. There can't always be a right time to buy every asset. Otherwise, someone with a lot of money would beat you to it, and that 400 square foot condo. So people that bought in the last couple of years, they're going to be in a lot of hot water if they haven't paid that down. Now, enjoy real estate agents and economists discussing the credit cycle for now the next few months. Always glad to help. Thank you, Better Dwelling. Let's move on to the next article here. Canadian real estate owners that tapped a HELOC owe an average of $97,000. Oh my God, a second mortgage or line of credit that's tied to your house or whatever you want to call it. Wow. Canadian real estate owners are wasting no time burning through that new equity. Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, using Equifax data, crunched numbers with HELOC borrowers across Canada. The agency found 2/3 of borrowers have used their HELOCs and owe an average of nearly six figures. Tapped versus untapped. Okay, goes into basically the vast majority of Canadian debt is attached to real estate. Wow. And only the tapped number is, so there's secured and unsecured. So you have a secured debt that's basically tapped onto your house, leveraged on your property, and then there's unsecured where your signature is your your promise to pay back is promissory. Mortgage debt is 60. Wow. Mortgage debt is 66% of total debt, and tapped HELOC accounts is another 11% of household debt. CMHC analysts note that if all debt was tapped, it would account for nearly a quarter, wow, of all household debts. The good news is HELOCs are great for emergencies, and 3.1 million homes have access to one in Canada. The bad news is people are tapping into their home equity when home prices and the economy have been booming. A correction, remember, people have been using them as ATM machines, buying fur coats, expensive vacations, one-upping their neighbor. I love one-upping neighbors. Ooh, he's got a new car. Ooh, I'm going to get this car now. My car's got extended with this, and it's got an extra running board, and I got better tinted windows, and it's more sporty, and that's how it works. Over 66% in HELOCs have been used, and that's the key right here. How much of the HELOCs have been used? 66% of HELOC borrowers have drawn HELOC across Canada, and an average balance of $64,543. That balance rises significantly in BC to $78,203, where 63.2% of borrowers have tapped into their equity. Ontario's right in the middle of stats, and 64.6% of borrowers tapping their HELOC with the average of balance of 60 large. The average Canadian HELOC balance, there it is. Woo! Woo! Look at BC. They're eating! Someone's eating off them HELOCs. Nice steak dinner. I love it. Prairies. Wow, prairies are pretty up there, too, eh? Ontario, of course. Quebec. Atlantic. And that's Canada as a whole. That's what the figure that they're getting right there. But BC makes up the most of it. And then the prairies, which is beside BC, and then Ontario, which is beside the prairies, and then Quebec, which is north of Ontario. So, very interesting. Room to grow, more HELOC debt. The balance of HELOC debt is at all-time highs, but there's still plenty of equity to extract, according to CMHC. The average balance in Canada was $64,543 in Q1 of 2018, but the average limit that could be borrowed was $167,867. The British Columbia had the largest average limit of $212,000 compared to the average balance of $78,203. Ontario had the smallest ratio of utilization with the average limit of $172,448 and the average balance of $78,203. Here's the average Canadian HELOC balance and limit. Okay, there's the average balance and there's the average limit right there. Ooh, so they're not fully tapped in. They're not fully tapped in, but the average limit could be on some of these multi-million-dollar homes where they have $1 million or $2 million in limit to use, and a lot of them haven't, for example, and that brings up the limit average across the board, right? So it kind of manipulates the number a bit, but yeah, prairies, Atlantic. So there's obviously a lot of people that just don't tap into those HELOCs. So tapped HELOCs owe an average 97 large. There you go. The average balance is even higher when $0 balances are removed. HELOC borrowers owe an average of $97,347 across Canada. If we only account those that have extracted equity, BC has the highest average tapped balance at $123,000. So here it is. And in Q1 2018, Ontario's average tap balance is $94,198. So here it is here, the average balance and average tapped. So, wow. Wow, look at that. Prairies, Canada. Look at BC, man. 123,000 tapped. The most important takeaway is the size of concentration of a HELOC debt. Only 2/3 of HELOC borrowers have drawn cash, concentrating the debt. The balance can even get higher since the average is just a fraction of the total credit extended. So let's keep going, people. Canadian real estate is the least affordable since 1990. I already covered this there. And on the channel, you can see the video I did. Here it is, condo, recession, aggregate, and detached. It gives you a very detailed graph here. This is one of the most important graphs here in this article is Toronto Real Estate Affordability Index. So affordability is obviously starting to show signs of fracturing. And this is the RBC index. So there's the aggregate, there's the detached. So Obviously, the condos and everything else and the cheaper units like townhomes are obviously a lot easier to get into. And Canadian mortgage credit sees worst August since 1995, and we went over this also on my channel under housing crash. Housing, homeless, and a history of discrimination come together at one Vancouver intersection. And that was one thing when I lived in Vancouver. The discrimination was incredible. Incredible there. It's like people look at you like they don't like you. You get on an elevator, they look at you, and like it's like, ugh, sorry for being here, man. I'm out. Green space by Dunsmuir Viaduct is home to benches and trees, footpath, and a growing tent city. Another tent city growing now in Vancouver. There's tons of them over by the Home Depot there. If you go on Terminal Road, I don't know if they're taking them down. In Vancouver, the hot button issue of housing, homelessness, and a history of discrimination come together in one corner at Union and Gore. There, a piece of city land, primarily green space, divided by the east of the viaducts, is home to a few benches, some mature trees, a footpath, and increasingly people living in tents. It's looking good here, said Robert Malacca. The SROs that aren't run by the BC Housing and charging $6 to $7.50 a month for rent. Infested with cockroaches, and those that are BC Housing, they make all your friends have a government idea. McKellar said that he's in no rush to get out of his tent, but the site is concerned for some neighbors. However, the city has long-term plans for the area which could be modified depending on the outcome of the upcoming municipal elections. So there it is there in English and Chinese. I guess they're doing something with this land. Housing coming. One business owner who declined to be interviewed on the record described calling the city to complain about the campers over concerns and crime and drug use. But others say they are more supportive of campers and are sympathetic to their plight. Temporary modular housing has been proposed for the campsite. Some were enthusiastic about the prospect, while others are concerned about the loss of green space. Oof. So there's Gore Street there. Stephanie Allen wants to redevelop False Creek to include opportunities for Black Vancouverites. Shameful past. The future of this site, however, is intertactly linked to the past. It was once part of the Hogan's Alley, the heart of the city's black community, but razed to the ground when the viaducts were built. Now, the viaducts are slated to be demolished as part of a long-term plan for the neighborhood. Stephanie Allen, a director of Hogan's Alley Society, said early-stage negotiations are ongoing between her group and the city to turn the land into a last trust to be stewarded by the black community to ensure it will be affordable housing and in perpetuity. So there's a little thing you can listen to there. Toronto still sailing towards a fiscal iceberg. So why aren't mayoral front runners talking about it? I was talking to a gentleman on my show last night that was running in his election and stuff, in his Danforth, or well, I forgot what it was. Sorry, man. His name is Moby. He's been on the show quite a few times, and he's not in Scarborough. He's in Danforth. I think it's Danforth, right? So, anyways, he talks to Faith Goldie, and I told him one thing she should bring up, it definitely is talking about the housing crisis in Toronto. I think them taxing vacant homes in Toronto is a good thing. Vancouver's doing it. It's working really well. I think taxing vacant homes, empty homes, there's 100, I mean, they're sitting on a lot. I think it's 126,000 empty units. So if they could actually put their foot down and start sending out or mass mail, see who returns the mail with proof of living or Or how do you prove it? Well, they have to send in a water and an electricity bill and stuff to prove that people are something. Because once you start taxing the empty homes, you start seeing a lot of problems disappear quick in a heartbeat, and you start seeing a lot of funding in the housing in the housing sector. So yeah, the political front runners, Faith Goldie, she needs to do that. Everyone's talking about every other political front runner here except Faith Goldie, so I'm not going to give this article a chance. I don't care, because they're taking out the second or third highest that's leading in the polls, and I really hope Faith Goldie wins by landslide. I really hope that the silent majority comes out and votes. Toronto Community Housing Lottery highlights housing crisis amid elections. So, rental units, lotteries that come up once in a while, where people could afford to buy within some units in the building, or at a drastically reduced price, and it helps. Let's see what they say here.
We know it's not just a house you're buying or selling.
It's Remax ad, so we're gonna let that play because it has music in the background, and I don't want to flag my video for no reason. Yeah. Okay, let's see if there's any music. Nope.
75 units here at 110 River Street are designated affordable housing. Their occupants will be decided in a lottery. It's the second time Toronto Community Housing has done this, and while it says the process is fair, not everyone thinks so.
I really don't think it's a fair system, being that everybody's circumstances are different.
Briar Rose Perrier put her name in for one of these high-end, rent-reduced units, which she says would make her life a lot easier. But she isn't holding her breath when it comes to her chances.
It's been hard for me to even look at houses and get a place at market rent, so I doubt that I'm going to get in on a lottery.
Affordable housing has already become a major issue in this election.
The continued affordability of Toronto is going to in part be determined by the discipline the city government shows on taxes.
Mayor John Tory says keeping property taxes low is one way to keep the city affordable. And if re-elected, he's committed to building 40,000 affordable housing units over 12 years, banking on his ability to deal with the provincial and federal government to get it done.
We're substantially ramping up the targets for the next 4 years on a realistic basis as advised by city staff and others.
Challenger Jennifer Keesmaat has committed to 100,000 affordable units over 10 years and says Tory can't live up to his promise.
The tension over who gets access to the housing is a reflection of the fact that we are so far behind in building affordable housing as a city.
Saran Gabraselassie, who says she's against the TCHC lottery, says neither Tory or Keesmaat have shown they can deliver.
Under Jennifer Keesmaat and John Tory's leadership, they did not build even half of the units that they promised to the people of the City of Toronto.
Regardless of the election rhetoric, people like Perrier say they need a place to live now. And with over 2,000 people signing up for just 75 units, it's clear what's being offered isn't enough. Matthew Bingley, Global News.
So, Faith Goldie, guys, let's see. We'll find out what her platform is. Hopefully I could get her on the show and we could talk. I'd like to get her on the show. But like I said, I'm a small fry. So, anyways, for people living in Canada, Toronto, Quebec is booming right now. Let's take a quick look at Alberta housing market. News. The most and least affordable housing markets in Alberta. Housing market not headed for a major correction, says Moody's in Alberta. CREA's expectations for Canadian housing market for balance. Realtors starting to bid on Northeast Edmonton home. Wow. Country affordability called into question. Home sales increased for the fourth straight month, but prices still flat nationally. Coming to Edmonton's housing market, the pork chop lot. So, and let's go to Montreal housing markets. I know it's booming there right now. Montreal's real estate market is continuing with its hot streak, so it's still going up there. Montreal's real estate market is booming while Canadian other markets start falling. Century's real estate market report, Montreal. Montreal's real estate hits 9-year high. That's from today. Is today's article, peeps. If you guys want to see that, right there, Montreal's real estate hit 9-year high. So that's what's going on, guys. Montreal is moving. They're getting it's booming right now. A lot of what do you call it? Foreign investors and a lot of auctions. They've never seen auctions in Quebec, so now they have auctions there. So what's happening? I know a couple of real estate agents that are moving around within different provinces and bringing their glory and charm and getting customers and clients, and they're moving around and building up a big stash of savings, moving around to different, and a couple of them went to Seattle when it was booming. A lot of them bombed out of there a month ago, 2 months ago, when the market started to tank, and now they're up in Quebec. A couple of them are actually up in Quebec from Seattle that was originally in Vancouver. So they're going around bringing in their clients from all over the world and booming up this markets, and as they basically line their pockets with hard-working earners, hard-working families' money. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Mike Martins. Don't forget to join me. Guys, follow my channel. Here, look. Check my channel out, guys. It's actually good. Like, I got so much stuff in there. It's not just housing. People that follow me for housing. My live shows are here. Trends in the housing market, all here, all nicely by date. Housing crisis, which this video is in the carousel. Mike and the Night Show talking about topics, rants and lifestyle, just points of views and just ranting and talking. And Game Store Business from Scratch is a really good one where I took a business, a dilapidated building in the town I'm living in, and I built myself a small, and then starting a home business from scratch. Really good, really good. I am going to do a video in the next couple of days for my home business because it's really taking off. I don't know if it's because we're only 3 months away. No, wow, we're 2 months away from Christmas. I don't know if it's picking up because of that. I'm not going to say anything because I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching and subscribing. And don't forget to donate my tip bar in PayPal. Thanks for watching, guys.